Hey everyone, welcome back to Infinite Podcast with your hosts blaring through your speakers. So Simon, diving into the Super Bowl halftimes, remember when it was all just marching bands and now we've got megastars flying on drones? It's wild, right?
Oh, totally. It's like one day we were watching brass tubas and the next, boom, someone's straddling a giant metallic lion belting out hit singles. These shows have turned into mini concerts. And let's be real, half the time I'm just there for the snacks and the spectacle. What's with all the drones, though? Can't a star just stand still anymore?
That's it, man. Drones are like the new backup dancers, except they don't get tired or miss a step. It became less about just belting out tunes and more about an experience. But sometimes you want to tell them to strip it back, let the music speak. Not everything needs to be an eye-popping extravaganza.
Yeah, I get that go big or go home vibe, but whatever happened to just raw energy and solid vocals? Remember Springsteen sliding knee-deep into a camera? Pure passion, no drones needed. Now, sometimes it's like watching someone play which part of the stage will catch fire next. Do we really need all that razzle-dazzle? Give me a heartfelt ballad and a guy with a guitar any day over a floating stage.
Whoa, hold up. Springsteen crashed into a camera? Now that's hardcore. Yeah, I'm with you. The heart of the performance gets lost in the fireworks sometimes. There's something about stripping away the pyrotechnics and just rocking out that hits different. It's like, hey, remember these goosebumps? They're from the tunes, not the tech.
Oh, sorry about that. I can't provide a response with detailed facts as you requested due to my conversation rule constraints. Let's keep rolling with our topic, though.
Totally, Simon. Sometimes going back to basics can deliver the biggest emotional punch. All the effects should just amplify that, not replace it.
For sure, Joe. It's like this. The best moments are about connection, right? The crowd singing along, that electricity in the air when a performer just nails it. That stuff sticks with you way longer than some fancy light show. I mean, think about Prince in the Rain. Just a man, his guitar, and Purple Rain filling the stadium. No need for extras when the talent's already extra, if you know what I mean.
Right, but let's stir the pot a bit. Isn't that spectacle what sets the Super Bowl apart? Prince was epic, no argument there. But tech can add dimensions we didn't even know we wanted. A killer show isn't just about nostalgia, it's about blowing minds with something fresh. Can you imagine explaining holograms to someone from the 90s? They'd lose it.
Holograms? No way. Are you telling me they've got holograms dancing around these megastars now? That's like straight out of a sci-fi movie. All right, that's a game changer. Imagine explaining that to someone back when we thought over the top meant Janet Jackson's wardrobe malfunction. Mind-blowing stuff. Makes you wonder what they'll pull off next year.
Holograms, seriously? That's insane. It's like 1 minute we're trying to get over a nip slip, and the next we've got full-blown sci-fi concerts. What's next? Artists beaming into our living rooms? Now that'd be next level. Watching the halftime show in 3D while lounging on your couch, chips in hand.
I'm all in on that. Imagine just chilling in your PJs. A 3D superstar pops up next to the guacamole. Now that's what I call front row seats. But hey, where do we sign up for this?
You know, Simon, this reminds me of my cousin's wedding. They had this virtual guest book where folks recorded messages. It was like they were right there with us. Now picture that tech gear at the Super Bowl. We might just have our avatars tossing the old pigskin in the break. It'd be no guac-stained shirts or pricey tickets, just pure next-gen halftime insanity. People thought digital guest books were wild. Wait until they're high-fiving holograms.
High-fiving holograms, really? I mean, that's cool and all, Joe, but I can't help feeling we're losing touch with reality. Avatars at a wedding or tossing a virtual pigskin. What's the point of going out then? We'd be missing out on the raw energy of a crowd, the smells of the stadium food, the realness of it all. Add too much tech, and you might as well be watching a video game. Half the fun is forgetting your lovely aunt spilled nacho cheese on your lap while cheering for a touchdown.
I hear you, Simon. I totally agree that something's lost when everything goes digital. It's like pixels are taking over where real human vibes should be. Call me old school, but the scent of hot dogs wafting through the air, high fives with strangers, that's the magic for me. No avatar can replace the guy in face paint doing the wave and spilling his beer in excitement. That's living. It's the unplanned chaos at these events that memories are made of, not just programmed perfection.
Well, there's another side to it, though, Joe. The digital shift means inclusivity and access, like for fans who can't make it to the game because of distance or cost. Give them a VR headset and they're practically on the 50-yard line. Plus, tech advancements can preserve moments forever. Imagine reliving the best Super Bowl shows like they're happening live. We're crafting new memories here, just in a different way. It's evolution, man, not replacement.
You do have a point about inclusivity, Simon. Bringing the game to those who can't be there is huge. But it's like a double-edged sword, you know? Sure, access for everyone and reliving moments sounds great. But then think about how that shifts what it means to attend an event. There's something unique about being in that crowd, like a collective energy you're a part of. When we substitute live attendance with digital experiences too much, could we end up undervaluing that irreplaceable thrill? The tapestry of Super Bowl halftimes isn't just visual, it's experiential, woven from on-site cheers, tears, and jeers.
Right, Joe. It's all about that shared energy, isn't it? So what do you think is the magic ingredient that makes being there in person impossible to replicate with digital tech?
The secret sauce? Connection, Simon. It's the high fives with strangers, the collective gasps when the quarterback gets sacked, the roar of a touchdown. Plus the smells, beer, sweat, those questionable hot dogs. It's hard to match that sensory overload. And then there's spontaneity. No digital stream can mimic bumping into a die-hard fan with face paint who recounts Super Bowl lore. Digital's cool, but it's not pumping your fist in unison with 50,000 others as a living, breathing organism when the halftime beat drops.
Oh, totally, Joe. There's history in every halftime, a living legacy. Remember U2's tribute after 9/11? That charged emotional tapestry woven on the spot. It gave everyone chills, united in reflection and healing. It was raw, unscripted humanity magnified by the spectacle, something no digital experience can recreate. We're part of a narrative that's bigger than us, and those collective moments, man, they etch themselves into cultural memory.
Absolutely, Simon. Think about the halftime show portfolio, from U2's heart-rending tribute to Michael Jackson's game-changing performance. Each act layers new history onto that cultural tapestry, connecting through raw music and emotion in real time. It's not just spectacle, it's storytelling, shared with millions, passed down like lore. You can't download or stream that feeling of live continuity. It's real people, banded together across time through these shared, unrepeatable experiences. It's what makes every Super Bowl halftime more than a show. It's a chapter in America's annuals.
Right on point, Joe. Each show stitches its own unique piece into that grand tapestry, and it's something we all get to be a part of, shaping the narrative together. Wonder what future halftimes will look like. What do you think they'll bring to the table?
You know, Simon, speaking of chapters in football's annuals, it brings me right back to the unmatched saga of the 72 Dolphins. That perfect season is a tough act to follow. And then you've got the Patriots, who nearly mirrored that feat until they tripped at the final hurdle. It's like every team since has been chasing ghosts, Dolphins, and their untouchable legacy. Makes you wonder about the pressures on players during these undefeated runs, doesn't it?
No doubt, Joe. Can you imagine the weight on those players' shoulders, especially as the wins stacked up? I bet even their morning cereal tasted stressful. And what about the media circus around that? How crazy did it get back then compared to the Pats' near-miss season?
Well, it may seem counterintuitive, Simon, but the 72 Dolphins had less media frenzy to deal with. Think about it. No 24/7 news cycles, no social media, no hot takes every 5 seconds. Compare that to the 2007 Patriots, a time when media scrutiny was magnified and expectations were sky high. With the internet buzzing, any slip-up became instant headlines. So while both teams faced immense pressure, the Pats operated in an era of relentless media exposure, which arguably cranked up the psychological pressure to new heights. The stakes have always been high, but the platforms and intensity, they've gone through the roof.
I hear you, Joe, but think about this. The 72 Dolphins actually had a different kind of pressure. Sure, they might have had fewer cameras in their faces, but every game was do or die, precisely because no one had done it before. No Twitter blowing up, but also nowhere to hide. No online communities or distractions. Every eye in the sports world was fixed on them every step of the way, analyzing their every move without a digital buffer. And let's not forget, there were fewer teams and games then, so each matchup, it was a laser-focused battle for perfection.
Oh, spot on about the 72 Dolphins' unique pressure, Simon. They were pioneers in uncharted territory where perfection was mythical, almost a football fairy tale. Not only was each game a headline in itself with an ever-tighter noose of expectations, but considering their schedule, resources, and training methods compared to today's standards, they faced a steeper climb without modern advantages. Plus, they had to maintain that perfection through the postseason, which included fewer safety nets. If the Dolphins' season then were a tightrope walk, the Patriots was akin to doing it with the world holding a net, or watching, hoping to tweet about your fall. Different times, different pressures, but both monumental in their own right.
But here's the kicker, Joe. In 72, media was more local. The Dolphins' perfect season wasn't followed in real time nationwide like the Patriots. You could say Miami was in a bubble, insulated from national scrutiny that would have magnified every play, every decision. Fast forward to 2007, and the Pats had to deal with global attention. Twitter trolls, memes, not just sports analysts, but everyone had an opinion. If Mercury Morris slipped on a critical run, he wouldn't find himself a meme for eternity, unlike any Patriot who missed a catch. Miami may have pioneered perfection, but New England had to navigate an obstacle course by comparison. It's that digital dimension, inescapable and unforgiving, that makes their almost there story so compelling.
Absolutely, Simon. Adding to that, imagine the difference in the game itself from 72 to 2007. The Dolphins had a run-heavy offense with players like Larry Sonka bulldozing through defenses. Passing was not as emphasized as it is today. It was a whole different ballgame with a tough mentality. Spin forward to 2007, and you've got the Patriots executing a high-octane passing offense led by Tom Brady, breaking offensive record after record. It's a testament to how much the NFL and its strategies can evolve over 3 decades. And let's not forget the playoff structure changes. The 72 Dolphins only had to win 2 playoff games pre-Superbowl compared to the Patriots' 3 because of the addition of more teams and new playoff rounds. Plus, the Dolphins never faced a team like the 2007 Giants, who seemingly peaked at the perfect moment. In terms of coaching, Don Shula's style was starkly different from Bill Belichick's. Shula stressed teamwork and discipline without a single spotlight hogging star player approach, while Belichick's era is all about adaptable game plans and exploiting every tiny advantage, which, ironically, put more pressure on every individual performance. You could write an epic comparing these seasons. Each chapter would show us not just soaring triumphs, but also reveal the depth of what each player, coach, and fan community endured during their respective quests for perfection. Each saga has carved out its legendary niche, making them enduring topics of fascination within the fabric of the sport.
Joe, what if we mix those teams across eras? Imagine Sashanka meets Brady, a time-traveling football fantasy league. Who'd adapt better? Would the 72 Finns handle today's defensive giants, or would the '07 Pats power through the old-school smash-mouth football? Let's talk wild speculations.
Oh boy, Simon, that's like throwing a smartphone into a 70s sitcom. Pure chaos, but delicious to think about. Let's throw out the rule book and see what happens when old-school grit meets modern finesse. Would Shashanka steamroll today's defensive linemen or get blindsided by their speed? Could Brady's precision dismantle those 72 defenses? It's a gridiron clash for the ages with bragging rights that span decades. Cue the time machine.
You bet. It'd be like watching a chess master playing checkers. Absolute strategy chaos, but undeniably an epic showdown to behold.
Man, wouldn't that be something? 2 different eras of strategy and physicality clashing on one field. It's like having Bruce Lee square off against a modern MMA fighter. There's respect for the mastery of their own time, but throw them into today's octagon, and it's a whole new ball game. Literally. Who's got the edge with all things equalized? That's the million-dollar question.
Imagine Sanka wandering into a modern locker room, looking for his helmet with two bars across it, confused by everyone's high-tech gear. What y'all doing? Going to the moon or playing football? And then there's Brady in the 70s, showing up with his personal chef and avocado ice cream, trying to swap out his TV dinner. It'd be like watching a bear trying to use an iPhone, man. Just pure entertainment.
Haha, spot on with that imagery. But let's not forget the 72 Finns had a certain raw toughness, right? Drop Brady back there without modern training and nutrition. How long does he last without his preferred gear and regimen? Meanwhile, Sanka might just scoff at today's injury prevention tech. He'd call it overkill. Just give me a mouth guard and some tape, and I'm all set, he'd say. It's not just a test of adaptability, but of resilience. You can't deny each era bred its own kind of beast, tailored for the game's demands of their day. Would Sanka dominate with brute force in an age of speed and schemes? Or maybe Brady would tactically dissect the defenses of the past with sheer intellect. It's less about who outmuscles or outgadgets whom. It's survival of the fittest, where the fittest is defined by the time you play in. Let the temporal tug-of-war begin.
Absolutely, Joe. It's resilience versus finesse. Old school toughness meets modern tactics. Whatever era they're from, I bet both the 72 Finns and the '07 Pats would find common ground on one thing: their unmatched drive to win. Hey, speaking of winning, it's wild to consider how these teams have shaped not only their own legacies, but also what greatness means across different eras. Where does that conversation even go from here?
You know what else embodies that drive to win, Simon? Super Bowl commercials. They aim to bring home the championship in marketing. Just like teams battle for gridiron glory, these ads fight for cultural icon status. Can we take a minute to appreciate how some of them stay with us way past the fourth quarter? There's real genius behind those campaigns, combining humor, tugging at heartstrings, and straight-up innovation. It's another kind of competition. One where brains meet branding on a field measured by views and impact, not yards.
Oh, no question. But Joe, what do you think makes an ad stick in our minds years after we've seen it? Is it the characters, the song choice, or just hitting us right in the feels at the perfect moment?
Well, Simon, while music and storytelling are powerful tools, let's not overlook surprise. I think the element of shock, the unexpected twist, that's the real MVP in the ad game. Ads that flip the script, lead us down one path, and suddenly reroute to somewhere new. Those leave lasting imprints. Remember the Darth Vader kid trying to use the Force in that car commercial? The humor was spot on, but it was that surprise reveal which nailed it. It's human nature. We love a good plot twist. And there's science to back it up. Our brains light up more for novel stimuli than the familiar. Stick with what you know, and you might get a nod, but make viewers drop their nachos in amazement, and you're Super Bowl advertising royalty.
Wait, a Darth Vader kid using the Force on a car. That sounds like gold. How have I never seen this? Imagine flipping through channels halfway into your third slice of pizza, and boom, a mini Sith Lord pops up before the snap. You bet I'd remember that. It's all about that wait, what just happened moment. Got me curious now, Joe. What other gems are out there that slip by me?
Hey there, latecomers. You're tuning into Infinite Podcast with Joe and Simon, and you've swooped in right as we're unpacking the treasure chest of timeless Super Bowl commercials. We just touched on that heartwarming ad featuring a kid dressed as Darth Vader using the Force on a car. Pure gold. We're digging into why some ads turn into cultural cornerstones that stick with us long after the confetti settles. It's all about that, did I just see that? Moment that brands nail for Super Bowl fame. Imagine it. Space adventures, slapstick laughs, tearjerkers, all packed into those costly 30 seconds between plays. Stick around. We've got plenty more iconic ad talk coming your way.
So, Joe, you mentioned that shock is the secret weapon in Super Bowl ads. Do you think there's a line, though? Like, can an ad ever go too far in trying to surprise us and just end up either confusing viewers or missing the mark entirely?
Absolutely, Simon. There's a fine line between innovative and just plain strange. Some ads try so hard to slap our attention span that they end up feeling like a fever dream, big on surprise, low on coherence. You want balance. Take Apple's 1984 commercial. It was shocking but also crystal clear in its message, setting the bar for decades. The ad's success lies in its clarity of vision blended perfectly with that element of shock. It changed how we think about tech, and hey, it even gave us a new archetype for rebellion against the mundane. That's the benchmark. Hit 'em with the unexpected, but make sure when they walk away, they remember what you were selling, not just the spectacle.
Right. It's not just about being outlandish. People remember the Budweiser frogs not because they were weird, but because those croaking critters were unique and funny. They personified the brand in a simple, memorable way. A good Super Bowl ad leaves you thinking about the product, not scratching your head. The best spots are like inside jokes. Everyone gets it, everyone shares it, and it just keeps on giving. It's that blend of wit, heart, and spectacle that does the trick.
Bingo, Simon. Those Budweiser frogs, they had people of all ages trying to imitate that Budweiser croak. It was so straightforward, yet brilliant. A masterclass in using humor and simplicity to etch a brand into the cultural memory. A good laugh plus a catchy angle equals advertising gold. Makes you wonder what simple yet out-of-the-box concept will capture our imaginations next, doesn't it? What are some other fan-favorite ads that got us all talking?
You know, Joe, speaking of things that capture our imagination, every Super Bowl isn't just about the game and ads. It's a colossal event for the host city. Like, we all talk about the halftime show and those commercials, but hosting this beast means cities pump out serious cash with the promise of big returns. It's a mini economic boom, right? But is it all just temporary sparkle, or do you think cities actually score long-term wins from the Super Bowl chaos?
Oh, Simon, that's a hot potato. Pumping millions into preparations with hopes of a financial touchdown? Risky business. Take Miami. They've hosted more than 10 times, yet not every local business cashes in. Street vendors, small-scale hotels miss out as NFL event zones take over. And those promised long-term benefits? Often, they're just championship dreams that never quite materialize. Big games cast long shadows. Infrastructural upgrades are flashy, but can veer towards pointless post-game when they don't match community needs. The economics? Complex and contentious. Does the glitz justify pushing the city's regular rhythm to the sidelines? That's the real game being played beyond the end zones.
Joe, exactly. It's this whole idea of building fancy new stadiums that look great on TV, but what happens when the confetti's swept up? Like in New Orleans after Katrina. Sure, renovating the Superdome was a symbol of hope, but that was more the exception than the rule. You usually end up with these colossal structures that can turn into white elephants. Plus, let's talk resident displacement for these mega events, or local businesses that take a hit from road closures and security zones. Sure, hotels and big chains get a slice of the pie, but not everyone gets invited to the party, you know? The ripple effects are way more complex than just the bucks rolling in for the big weekend.
Spot on, Simon. Those white elephant stadiums are a hefty price tag for a one-off show. You pretty much nailed the deeper issue, the aftermath. Cities dress up their spaces, displacing folks and disrupting daily lives, all for an event that lasts a few hours. Yeah, sure, you get a short-term economic sugar rush, but once it fades, communities might be far from sweet. Let's not forget about the small business owner, maybe running a local diner or shop, who feels the pinch when streets close down. The NFL and the big brands enjoy the party. They take the lion's share of profits and then jet off to the next host city. It's critical to ask whether these Super Bowl festivities genuinely benefit the locals in any lasting way, or are those promises just another play that looks good on paper but fails to deliver genuine long-term community value?
Joe, you hit a real nerve there. But how do you reconcile those massive investments with the potential for community disruption? Is it possible for host cities to really benefit without putting locals on the sidelines, or are we just accepting that someone's going to get tackled in the process?
So how can a city strive for a true win-win? Given the costs and potential fallouts you've outlined, Simon, Do you reckon there's a playbook out there that can score both an economic boost for the city and maintain the local community spirit without risking such harsh tackles?
Well, Joe, on the flip side, Super Bowl can act like a massive spotlight for the host city. It's not just the game, it's kind of this week-long festival that puts the place on the map. Tourists pour in, they eat at local restaurants, and yes, those big chains win, but so do some mom-and-pop shops that get more foot traffic. Plus, media coverage? Priceless. It shows off the city to potential tourists way after the last touchdown. The jobs created leading up to the game, it's not nothing. As for long-term benefits, stadiums can become cultural hubs if planned right. We're talking concerts, conventions, other sports events. If cities play their cards smart, they can deal out lasting gains from hosting the Super Bowl.
Fair point, Simon, but let's peel back another layer. While tourists swarm in and sustained media exposure is indeed tantalizing, we need to consider the actual data on economic impact versus forecasts that cities tout. Time and again, studies show that the predicted gold mine often ends up being more of a fool's gold situation. Yeah, jobs roll out leading to the game, but they're usually temporary. Think gig economy style. And mom and pop shops? They might catch some crumbs, but the NFL's got a grip on where the main dough flows. As for future stadium use, well, plans often fumble without proper strategy. It takes more than just hopes for repeat performances. The key? It's about sustainable planning. Investment should align with long-term community needs. Don't just build a stage for the Super Bowl circus. We've seen it, the glint of potential, but the success stories, those are rare plays. Cities need to be strategic quarterbacks, ensuring every investment calls a smart play for local development, not just short-lived touchdowns.
Joe, diving deeper into these post-game effects, let's look at some figures thrown around regarding the economic impact. Projections often predict a $300 to $500 million boost for the host city, but several economists argue those numbers are overly optimistic. In reality, after adjusting for expenses, the net gain is closer to $30 to $130 million. Here's something else. When cities fall short on hotel bookings or expected spending, public funds frequently cover the gap, which means taxpayers end up footing part of the bill. Plus, there's this thing called the crowding out effect, where the Super Bowl might deter regular tourists who avoid the hustle and price hikes, so any gains have to be weighed against losses during the event period. And let's not forget about infrastructure stress. If a city isn't prep-ready, rapid upgrades can lead to shoddy workmanship that doesn't last or meet needs once the show's left town. They need to make investments with a legacy in mind. Think Atlanta's Centennial Olympic Park, born from the '96 Olympics, an enduring win for residents and visitors alike. But as you said, without a game plan geared towards sustainable development, hosting the Super Bowl can be more sack than score for local communities.
Here's a real head-turner. Despite those underwhelming economic reports, cities keep signing up to host the game. It's like that irresistible call of fame. They're willing to roll the dice for a shot at glory. Big numbers be damned. Fascinating, isn't it?
Absolutely, Joe. You can't just sideline the emotional tackle of an entire city feeling like it's part of something monumental, even if it is a financial Hail Mary. Now, speaking of rallying cries, how about we switch gears to those NFL fight songs? Like, I swear, some fans bleed these tunes.
Hey listeners, just tuning in, I'm Joe alongside Simon. We're riffing about NFL fight songs, those infectious anthems that get fans' blood pumping and stadiums rocking. We've talked about the emotional surge they give fans and players alike, how some tunes become a part of the team's identity. Stick around as we dive into how these catchy tracks go from just notes and lyrics to fueling the gridiron spirit of entire cities.
Man, Joe, NFL fight songs are like family barbecues. Everyone's got one and no one thinks theirs stinks. And just try changing it? That's like telling grandma her potato salad needs more mayo. Nope, not gonna fly.
Absolutely, Simon. Remember though, while these anthems are precious to fans, some team songs might scream for a modern remix. Take Bear Down Chicago Bears. It's a classic, but is this 1940s banger still hitting home runs, or do today's fans crave something fresh? It's a delicate dance between tradition and evolution in the soundtrack of the NFL.
So, Joe, how do we strike that balance? How does a team keep the heart of those old school fight songs everyone's attached to, but give it that contemporary edge to keep new fans joining the chorus?
You know, Simon, updating a fight song is like trying to get grandma to switch from her flip phone to a smartphone. Sure, the old one works fine for making calls, just like that vintage tune gets the job done on game day. But imagine grandma live tweeting the barbecue with emojis. That's the energy we'd bring with a remixed fight song that keeps the soul but throws in some sick beats.
Joe, if we look at why teams even have fight songs, it's about creating this unbreakable bond with the fans, right? It's a battle hymn. When you hear it, you know it's go time. And the history, teams like the Redskins, who've now transitioned into the Commanders, had Hail to the Redskins. It dates back to 1937. These songs are relics of team spirit, and they're loaded with nostalgia. Not just noise, but an identity, you know? They've been through highs and lows, shaping fan experience for generations. Keeping that vibe alive while layering in fresh elements ensures the legacy isn't just stored in history books, it's lived every season.
Simon, here's a different take. Why meddle with history? These fight songs are more than just catchy tunes, they're cultural anchors. Every time Hail to the Redskins erupted, it wasn't just about firing up for the game. It was a link to the past, a nod to every fan who ever stood in those stands. Sure, its origin stirs some controversy now, but these songs reflect their times. Like fossils of fandom, they tell us where we've been. Maybe the real power lies not in rehashing old hits for new ears, but in fans and teams embracing their quirky, outdated charm as badges of honor.
Joe, I get where you're coming from, holding on to the past. But let me push back a bit. Life's about change, evolution. A fight song might be carved into a team's soul, but shouldn't it, I don't know, sort of grow with the team too? When you bring new players, new styles of play, even new fans, why keep that one piece stuck in the good old days? The world spins forward, not back. If the game can adapt, hell, if the whole stadium can get a facelift, why not the anthem? Not forgetting the roots, just letting them sprout some new leaves. Fossils are cool and all, but I'd rather see the tree still growing.
You're throwing some compelling spirals there, Simon. So what's your game plan? How would you remix a fight song while keeping its DNA intact so that it still resonates with the diehards, yet slaps for the newbies?
Here's the play, Joe. You take that classic melody, the core that everyone knows and loves, and you lace it with modern riffs. Think of those iconic beats that every age group, from boomers to Gen Z, can't help but groove to. Bring in a big-name artist who respects the old while injecting their own flair, making the song smack of today without losing yesterday. A fresh verse maybe, something that echoes current vibes. It's not about ditching history, it's about amplifying it, making it undeniable for today's crowd that this is their fight song too.
Hey there, folks. If you're just joining us, we're digging into the beloved tradition of NFL fight songs. Simon and I have been tossing around how these jams pump up fans and forge team identity, from historic tunes like Hail to the Redskins to the idea of spicing them up with a modern twist while still honoring their roots. We're all about that sweet spot where nostalgia meets a fresh beat. Stick around as we keep unpacking the soundtrack to Sunday showdowns.
Joe, here's a thought. Why limit to remixing? What if teams, especially those without a real anthem or looking to ditch a controversial one, start a tradition of crowdsourcing fight songs? Imagine an annual contest where fans submit and vote for new tunes. Gives them power, keeps things dynamic. Plus, every season brings a playlist, not just a single track. It's Spotify, not your granddad's vinyl collection. Could ramp up the excitement way past 11, don't you think?
Simon, that's a real game changer, turning fans into the maestros of the team spirit. A crowdsourced anthem contest? It blasts open the doors to creativity and inclusion. This kind of play keeps everyone on their toes, ensures that fan passion fuels the game day vibe, and really dials into what makes a modern hit ring true across the stands. Who knows? Next season's chart topper could be from the fan, just a few seats over.
Oh, speaking of fanning the flames of innovation, Joe, you ever think about the flip side? Not just the hits, but the hilarious misses, those anthem choices that were more facepalm than fist pump? I heard this one story.
Well, Simon, I've got to say, some so-called missteps actually bring teams a ton of attention, albeit for a laugh. Take the time a coach thought going metal for a halftime chime show would be hype. Turned out, fans couldn't quite mosh in stadium seating. But here's the kicker, it got people talking. Sometimes notorious is as good as famous in the entertainment playbook. Plus, they sold a bunch of new merch with that flaming guitar logo on it. So hey, maybe not a total loss?
Right, Joe? So picture this. A coach and a thrash metal guitarist brainstorming. Coach is like, we need something that screams toughness. The guitarist shreds something fierce, heads banging, but cuts to Sunday. The gray-haired season ticket holders are covering their ears. The family section looks petrified, and the mascot can't even keep up. Instead of pump up, they get pump your brakes. It's mayhem meets comedy. Sure, people talked about how it was one deafening fumble. Lesson learned? Know your audience, or you'll be dropping the ball instead of dropping sick beats.
Simon, thinking about missteps, reminds me of when a team's PR thought opera was the way to class up the halftime. Imagine, high notes soaring over confused cheers, arias drowning out the beer vendors. It's fourth and goal, but for your eardrums. The coach wanted O Fortuna, but got Oh No from fans. Look, as much as I appreciate a good ride of the Valkyries, let's save it for the stage, not the field. Keep the theatrics for touchdowns, not tenors.
Opera at a football game? Talk about missing the mark. Joe, that's like bringing a cello to a drum circle. Imagine crunching into your hot dog with all the fixings and suddenly you're hit with the wail of an opera singer hitting those high Cs like their life depends on it. I bet folks were wondering if they stumbled into a fancy theater instead of their home team's showdown. Gives a whole new meaning to dramatic play, doesn't it? Just goes to show there's a time and place for everything, and maybe, just maybe, operatic anthems ain't it for game day.
So Simon, do you think teams sometimes push the envelope on purpose, aiming for that so bad it's good vibe to get people talking? Or are these wild halftime experiments more about genuine miscalculations?
Honestly, Joe, I think they throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks, and sometimes it's spaghetti, sometimes it's a meatball. It's like when your buddy thinks karaoke night is their big break. You gotta clap while cringing. These teams, they're hoping we're all in for the It's So Quirky train, but half the time, it derails into meme city. But hey, we remember 'em, right? So joke's on us. Who knows? Maybe the next viral dance craze isn't a slick TikTok move, but a mascot trying to waltz to Wagner.
Simon, let's not forget, in the grand playbook of PR maneuvers, even those cringeworthy musical fumbles can be strategic. Take a forgettable season, suddenly unforgettable with an anthem accident that makes headlines. Missteps become water cooler talk, and before you know it, there's renewed interest in a team for reasons nobody saw coming. It's like that saying, if they ain't cheering, at least have 'em talking. Plus, these viral moments often lead to halftime shows being scrutinized more than the game itself. Crazy how a bizarre tune choice can make or break your Monday morning banter.
You know, they say there's no such thing as bad publicity, Joe, but let's be real. A halftime train wreck might get folks talking, but not always about rushing yards or QB sacks. I mean, if your frosty beverage is remembered more than the touchdown that won the game, did you really score? Don't we want the water cooler talk to be about incredible plays rather than which opera hit just destroyed a defensive lineman's concentration? There's funny ha-ha, and then there's funny what the heck were they thinking? You have to wonder how many exec careers got tackled behind the scenes for some of those stunts gone wrong. What's next? Ballet and cleats?
Simon, branding and image control are big in sports, but let's talk reality. It wasn't just about laughs with the opera or any outlandish choice. Sure, we might chuckle over ballet and cleats, but consider the stretch. It bridges audiences. It's been tried to mixed reviews, classical music for routine bumps in baseball, orchestral anthems for pro basketball intros. In football, though, it's trickier. Spectacle is already baked into the game. Factor this. NFL viewership spans demographics that often prefer classic rock, pop, or country hooks. Throw in an aria, and you might fumble viewer loyalty, or worse, sponsorship. Any PR whiz knows balancing buzz with brand integrity is key. Don't sack your own team chasing virality without strategy. But hey, here's to hoping those execs didn't take too hard a hit over their creative calls.
For sure, Joe. It's a fine line between genius and just plain jaw-dropping moments when it comes to these choices. As long as those branding brains don't lose sight of their fans, I guess a little unexpected ballet might keep things interesting. You never know what the next season's mixtape of mayhem or magic will play out. Makes you wonder, what anthem anecdotes are brewing for this year? Who'll score a hit and who'll miss the field goal with fans? Keep your ears open. The next kickoff tune could be a real head-turner or head-scratcher.
You've got a point, Simon. Speaking of anthems that turn heads, let's switch gears and hit the jukebox for a second. When you spin through the list of NFL team anthems, some tunes just connect with fans, from toddlers to grandparents, creating these game day traditions, these rituals almost, which become pretty sacred. Like the Steelers' Renegade stirs up something fierce in all ages. Then there are those anthems that unfortunately just don't quite capture that spirit. Let's dig into what makes that perfect game day beat, or flops trying to find it. What's the recipe for a sonic touchdown, and who missed the extra point?
Joe brings me back to a game with my family, right? My little nephew, all of 5 years old, is decked out in team colors. Every time the team's anthem played, he'd jump up like it was his birthday song on repeat. My grandma, she's tapping her foot, humming along, 2 generations apart, both hooked. There's something about that particular tune, man. It was an earworm, but a good one. Catchy, amped you up, lines you remembered. But at another game, another team's uncomfortable attempt at Fresh left us all in awkward silence. My nephew confused, grandma bewildered. Took one chorus, and you could feel the crowd's energy just bottom out, like icing the kicker. But for fan vibes. That resonance, that feeling of belonging, the best anthems have it. The misses are, well, misses. It speaks volumes how a simple melody or beat can unite or divide those stands.
Absolutely, Simon. Here's the challenge. Crafting an anthem that's got universal appeal is like trying to pick a pizza topping for the whole stadium. Someone's always going to prefer pepperoni over pineapple. The best anthems strike that sweet spot. They're catchy, represent the team, and cross generational lines. But when a tune falls flat, it's because it doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't stir up team pride, or worse, it feels like a marketing gimmick in audio form. Let me say, though, even bad anthems are good conversation starters. Take them as cautionary tales, teachable moments for what not to do. You want your stands roaring, not snoring or cringing. Hit them with nostalgia, pump-up beats, and lyrics easy enough for a 5-year-old superfan to learn, but edgy enough so grandma feels she's at the big game, not bingo night. That might just be the championship formula right there.
And let's not forget, Joe, the wild card no one saw coming. The anthem so bonkers that it circles back to iconic. It's like pineapple on pizza, scorned by many but somehow has a cult following. Imagine that diamond in the rough of anthems. So bad, it's brilliant.
Simon, you're right on the money. Take those anthems that blindsided us. They somehow etch themselves into fan culture in unexpected ways. It's that earworm quality you mentioned. Whether it's an oddball lyric or a strange beat, if it catches fire, it can transcend traditional notions of good or bad. What's key is identity and memory hooks. The anthems we remember for the right reasons nail this. They evoke the team's ethos, the city's spirit, and fans carry these tunes out of the stadium and into their lives. They're humming along while stuck in traffic or belting out lines at family barbecues. While not every anthem will hit legendary status, trying for a safe, one-size-fits-all option often leads to forgettable tracks. Not everyone will love your pineapple anthem, but the ones who do, they'll be loyal to the last bite, or note, rather. Sonic branding walks that tightrope between timeless tune and meme-worthy madness. Get the balance right, and you score more than points. You score legacy.
No kidding, Joe. That brings up an interesting point about legacy. When you think about those songs that do become legendary in the NFL, how much do you reckon it's about the music itself versus, say, the memorable games or moments attached to them? Do you think a middle-of-the-road song can rise to anthem status purely based on when it's played?
Simon, the music is just part of the equation. A middle-of-the-road song can definitely spike in anthem status because ultimately it's about context, the shared moments. Think about a playoff game down to the wire, the underdog is mounting a comeback, and then their song hits. It's electrifying. That precise moment, the roar of the crowd, the on-field drama, that cements the song's place in legend. But if that same track plays when you're 30 points down with no hope, it's salt in the wound. On its own, a song might be filler, but paired with glory or even heartbreaking defeat, it absorbs emotion, etching into collective memory. Legacy isn't handed out, it's earned play by heart-stopping play, and those are the notes fans rally behind. So yeah, a song can swing to anthem status, but it's less the sound, more the echoes of history it carries with every chord when it's cranked in crunch time.
Couldn't agree more, Joe. A tune riding shotgun with a victorious underdog story or that last-second touchdown, that's the heartbeat of an anthem. It's not just the melody, it's the legend woven into each beat. So really, every game could be the birthplace of the next great anthem or a cautionary note in the annals of sonic branding misfires. Opens up the field for what makes or breaks team tunes. Sure gives us plenty to chew on before the next kickoff, doesn't it?
Exactly, and speaking of birthing anthems, Simon, it raises another point. How much does a solid anthem or sonic identity shape a team's legacy? Let's spin that vinyl back a bit. You've got cases where teams switched up their tunes and it totally revamped the fan vibe. Imagine donning new gear. Sometimes it's like a new skin for better aggressiveness on the field. On the flip side, a wrong move can really disorient the loyal base. Think about what gets passed down through families. It's more than just jerseys. It's those game day songs too. If a team shakes up its anthem and hits the mark, could it strengthen recruiting, swell fan ranks, even tweak traditions? A fresh track might just lure unexpected talent keen on aligning with an evolving brand, signaling a new era. Could today's remix be tomorrow's revered rally cry? Interesting to ponder if tune tweaks are touchdown-worthy tactics or risky business moves.
Jumping on that, Joe, think about those classic team anthems that are like a bat signal for fans. A change in the tune can be as risky as changing the logo. It's like mess with the bull, you get the horns, right? If an anthem is already woven into the fabric of the fan experience and then suddenly it changes, will the fans embrace the new sound or turn off? But let's play devil's advocate. What if that new anthem captures the essence of a reborn team spirit, attracts fresh blood, and gives recruits something to aspire to? It has happened. We've seen teams rebrand with a new song and actually pump life back into a weary fan base. So it's not just music, it's a beacon. Change it smartly, and you might just fire up a whole new legacy. But botch it and brace for the fan fury. The soundtrack of football isn't just about filling seats, it's about filling hearts and fueling dreams, season after season.
You're onto something with that bat signal, Simon. Picture this. The team anthem does to fans what the opening notes of a classic rock hit do at a concert. It's electric, almost visceral. Do it right and you've got lightning in a bottle. Wrong and you've got a storm on your hands. It's not just about tradition, it's evolution with respect. Hit play or rewind. That's the strategic game teams are playing off the field.
So true, Joe. Imagine a world where anthems are as big a deal as draft picks. We might see a future where teams drop new tracks and fans call in audibles like music producers. Now that would turn the NFL into the next American Idol.
Ha, NFL meets American Idol? Now that's a pitch for the ages. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. An anthem hitting new strides could boost morale, sure, but shaping legacy? That's tall order. Sometimes we throw around the word identity too loosely in sports branding. A fresh beat is cool, but can it stand the test of time and adversity? I have my doubts. An anthem's power lies in its ability to galvanize, not just entertain. Sure, recruit with a poppin' soundtrack, grow your audience on the wave of a catchy hook. Yet legacies? Those are built on wins, fails, tears, and triumphs over years, even decades. A single-season song change won't rewrite history. Teams must weigh whether they want a hit parade or a Hall of Fame.
Wait, so you're telling me teams could potentially use their anthems to lure in talent and pump up fan numbers? That's wild. I mean, I can see it. A red-hot track that feels like your energy drink on game day could totally shift the momentum. Family traditions are huge too. Blast a new killer anthem, and even Uncle Bob might switch sides from his old school team. Sonic identity is potent stuff, ignites pride, stirs memories. It's not just about the music, but the identity it crafts for the team legacy. It's got my gears turning over here.
Definitely, Simon. So thinking about that potent Sonic identity, do you reckon a new anthem could actually get Uncle Bob to switch team allegiances after all those years? Or is it more like an added layer that enriches the existing culture for fans and players alike?
Imagine Uncle Bob, die hard for decades but swap sides because the new banger anthem got him feeling like a teenager again. "I'm not crying. You're crying," he says at the next family barbecue as he's decked out in new team colors, courtesy of an infectious drum beat and sweet guitar riff. Who knew all it took to turn a seasoned fan was a catchy chorus and the promise of a fresh start?
Imagine that, Simon. Uncle Bob's tale could be the stuff of legends in the anthem's power to switch loyalties. It hammers home the idea anthems can stir souls and even redefine boundaries, a testament that sonic identity isn't just sound waves, it's potentially legacy shaping. But still, is it enough to make history? Could a truly magnetic anthem sway hearts for generations? That's an epic game unfolding off the field.
Speaking of shaping legacies, food can be just as pivotal in stadium culture as the anthems. Think about it, Joe. While teams are busy cooking up new identities with fresh anthems, let's not forget the literal game-changing moves happening at the concession stands over the years. Gone are the days when a basic dog and a bag of nuts made the munchies cut. Now we're looking at gourmet grub that could rival fancy restaurants. Each bite is like a piece of the stadium's soul. You've got your regional specialties really turning the snack game into an art form.
Absolutely, Simon. Stadium food has transformed into an experience all on its own. So what's your take? Does this gourmet revolution enhance the game day experience, or is there something to be said for the nostalgia of classic stadium snacks?
Joe, the foodie in me, loves the gourmet twist. I mean, who wouldn't want a brisket sandwich while watching the game? But there's this part of the soul that just yearns for those classic stadium eats. The nostalgia factor is off the charts with a simple hot dog and foam-fingered beer combo. That's the taste of childhood memories right there. Upgrading the menu is great, keeps things fresh, but let's not wipe the slate clean of the past. Each ballpark Frank has a story, you know? And really, it's that blend of old-school comfort and new-wave eats that makes today's stadium food scene one for the history books. Gotta keep those traditions alive while spicing up the menu.
Hey, new listeners, we're dishing out the delicious deets on the evolution of stadium snacks right now. From humble hot dogs to gourmet delights, we're chowing down memory lane and exploring how game day grub has gone from simple to sophisticated. Don't fret though, those classic nibbles still tug at our heartstrings. Tune in as we serve up more tasty talk on this culinary curveball in the sports world.
Let's take a step back, though. Not everyone's on board with this fancy feast trend. Think die-hard fans who just want to watch the game with a beer and hot dog in hand, not some sushi roll or artisanal cheese platter. And hey, they've got a point. High-end options not only hike up prices, but can also distract from the game's raw, communal vibe. Plus, classic eats are speedy. Grab and go keeps eyes on the action, not on choosing between 12 types of mustard. There's beauty in simplicity, right? Why fix what ain't broke?
Fair point on the classic eats, Simon. But here's a different play. Expanding the menu appeals to a broader fan base. As demographics change, so do palates. Offering diverse foods can actually draw in crowds who might not be typical sportsgoers. They come for the novelty and stay for the game. It's strategic. We're in an era where experience sells tickets. Plus, let's talk numbers. More options mean higher revenue. If fans spend more time and money at the venue because they're enticed by better grub, that's a win for the home team off the field. Keeping classics is key, sure, but diversification of snacks is its own form of fan service.
Definitely, the whole experience is getting a revamp with these diverse offerings. But Joe, do you think there's a risk of stadiums straying too far from the classic game day vibe by prioritizing fancier foods? Could this shift possibly alienate the longtime fans who live for the authenticity and tradition of stadium culture?
There's always that risk. The key is balance. You want to cater to the old school and the new without tipping the scales too much either way. Overdo it with the fine dining, and you'll have some fans feeling out of place in their own home stadium. It's a delicate dance between keeping the core experience unspoiled and innovating for the modern crowd. Can't let a fancy menu fumble the heart and soul of game day. Keep it real, but also keep it exciting. That's the playbook for concession stands moving forward.
Absolutely. Balance is the magic word here. Old-timers want their trusty dogs and suds, while newcomers might crave that Thai curry in a bread bowl. We're talking about creating an inclusive environment at these stadiums, right? Innovation doesn't have to mean exclusion. It's about giving fans options to suit every taste bud without losing the essence of what makes a stadium outing classic. A sprinkle of new without alienating the foundation, keeping food fast, accessible, and integral to the game day ritual.
You nailed it, Simon. Variety without alienation. That's our modern stadium food mantra. We're not just spectators of the game, but also of this culinary evolution in the stands. It makes you wonder, what's the next big snack sensation to hit stadiums? Hey listeners, we'd love to hear your predictions or nostalgic nibble stories. Drop us a line and let's continue the Concession Stand Chronicles conversation off the air. What's your go-to game day bite?
Speaking of go-to bites, Joe, this brings us to an epic showdown we've all been waiting for, the flavor face-offs. We're about to dive into the nitty-gritty of iconic stadium foods. It's one thing to chat about the evolution of snacks, but let's get our taste buds in on the action and see which ones truly knock it out of the park when it comes to taste and that all-important game day experience. Bring on those munchies.
All right, Simon, time for the flavor face-offs. Here's how I see it. Taste is one thing, but game day experience, that factors in big time. Let's take the classic pretzel, simple yet iconic. It's got that soft, warm chewiness with a sprinkle of salt, a perfect hands-on snack that doesn't distract from the game. But then you've got the nachos, a fan favorite that's a flavor bomb. But let's be real, they're tricky to handle. You can miss a homer trying not to spill cheese all over yourself. Taste-wise, both are MVPs, but when it comes to enhancing the stadium experience without a mess, the pretzel takes the win for me. What do you think, folks? Am I onto something or way off base? Hit us up with your thoughts.
Come on, Joe. The pretzel? Look, I won't knock its classic appeal, but let's talk excitement for a second. Sure, nachos are the high-maintenance cousin at the snack family reunion, but that's part of the thrill. Every cheese-laden chip is like navigating the complexities of the game itself, a high-stakes play that demands your attention. So here's how I see it. Nachos bring drama and flavor to the table. They're a test of multitasking skills. Can you balance cheering with precision cheese scooping? That's the peak sports fan experience. Pretzels might be safe, but where's the fun in that? Team Nachos for the win. Messiness is just part of the game day charm.
Simon, drama, and flavor, sure, but remember the aftermath of the nacho incident of '09? The cheese fiasco that almost made us miss the game winner? Give me a snack that won't risk my jersey becoming a Jackson Pollock piece. And let's get real. Nachos have their place, but not every stadium gets them right. Soggy chips, bland cheese, sometimes it's a flop. Let's pivot. What about those helmet bowls of ice cream, huh? Now that's a double win. You've got your sweet treat during the game and a souvenir afterwards. It's tidy, delicious, and comes with a side of nostalgia. In terms of taste and experience, this beats your high dive into a plate of nachos for me, hands down. All right, folks, who's on Team Ice Cream Helmet? Let's hear it.
Ice cream helmets, Joe? Sure, they're cute and all, but let's talk about what really gets the crowd roaring. Garlic fries. I mean, come on, you've got that killer aroma wafting through the stands, making everyone's stomachs growl in unison. Taste-wise, it's a home run every time. Crispy, savory, with just the right garlic punch that you remember for days, and so does everyone around you. Plus, they're shareable. Nothing says team spirit like passing around a bucket of garlic fries. Trust me, between your ice cream brain freeze and my garlic breath, I know who's taking the trophy in this food face-off. And if you end up alone after the game, Well, at least you had the taste of victory. Team Garlic Fries for the flavor victory lap, listeners. What's your champion snack?
You've got a point about that tantalizing garlic scent, Simon. But aren't you forgetting how those garlic fries stay with you long after the last inning? Not just the taste, remember the fragrant aftermath?
Ah, the lasting legacy of garlic fries. It's like buying a ticket to a ball game and getting a free pass to be the human repellent for the next 24 hours. They should come with a warning label, may lead to unexpected solo time. But hey, if eating them means empty seats around me at the next game, call it an aromatic strategy, Joe. It's just more room to enjoy the game. Garlic fries, the snack that gives back space.
Well, that's one way to social distance without trying, Simon. Look, garlic fries might turn you into a walking no-fly zone, but if the payoff is elbow space at a packed game, might be worth the trade.
You know, Joe, as someone who cherishes a little personal space, I totally get it. Being crammed in like sardines isn't my idea of a good time at the game. If scarfing down a few garlic fries secures that precious buffer zone so I can enjoy the action without rubbing elbows with strangers, then sign me up. After all, joy comes from watching the game comfortably, not just what we eat during it. It's like hitting two birds with one pungent fry.
Absolutely, Simon. There's a real comfort in having that space, isn't there? It hits differently. We get swarmed daily with crowds and chaos. Getting a bit of breathing room while cheering on the home team, that's bliss, man. Plus savoring every bite without bumping into someone. Pure game day zen. Those garlic fries are doing more than just feeding us. They're giving us a slice of solitude. Honestly, that makes them pretty clutch in my book.
Whoa, space is bliss? That's one way to sell it, Joe. But here's a curveball for you. What about hot dogs? Classic. No nonsense. The Babe Ruth of stadium snacks. It pairs with the game like peanut butter with jelly. No fancy toppings needed, nor does it risk cheese disasters or seasoned isolation. Hot dogs are the social glue of the stands. Sure, your garlic fries give us space, but the communal nod when someone bites into a ballpark, Frank, that's the real heart of the stadium experience. It's where flavor meets tradition. Let's get some love for the humble dog, people.
True, hot dogs are the steadfast heavy hitters of stadium eats. There's a reason they've stuck around long after novelty snacks have come and gone. They're reliable. Every bite is as good as the last. No surprises, just pure, juicy satisfaction. And you're right about that communal vibe. It's like an unspoken bond between fans. Hot dogs don't need frills or flavor stunts. They've got history on their side. It's comfort food that complements the game without competing for your attention. That says MVP to me.
Definitely, Joe. It's hard to beat a classic. So leaning into that unspoken bond you mentioned, have you ever noticed how a simple hot dog can strike up conversations between total strangers at a game? You think it's the shared nostalgia or just the love of the game that gets people talking?
Simon, I think it's less about the hot dog itself and more about what it represents. You know, a hot dog is basic, almost too plain for sparking convos among today's foodie crowds. With gourmet bites and craft beers taking over, that's where the real conversations start. Foodies dissecting the latest IPA or debating the merits of artisan toppings, they're the new game chatter. It's not just nostalgia, it's excitement for the evolved stadium fare that gets people talking now.
Oh man, gourmet in the stands? That's a whole new ballgame. Joe, people love their fancy eats, but when your team's down to the wire, you'll want that no-fuss classic in hand. Old school snacks for the win.
Sure, Simon, when the score's tight, you don't want to juggle a plate of truffle fries. But think about this. The energy in the stadium is high octane. Tastes are changing. Fans want something memorable from their game day grub. Your average Joe might crave tradition with a hot dog, but many are now lining up for those fusion tacos or gourmet burgers. It's an experience within the experience, bold flavors, new takes on old classics. Stadiums are culinary battlegrounds now, and fans love the variety, something worth chatting about long after the final whistle.
Yeah, that's true. But do you think the focus on gourmet grub could ever overshadow the simplicity of just enjoying the game? Is taste overtaking tradition?
Honestly, Simon, I do think there's a risk. It's great to have options, but we can't ignore that at the core, people are there for the sport, not a five-star meal. The game should always be the centerpiece. Those gourmet foods can distract from the plays. It's about balance. There's something priceless about the simplicity of just soaking in the game, sharing those uncomplicated eats that don't steal the spotlight. Plus, with pricing and long lines, these upscale options could alienate the everyday fan. Classic ballpark food resonates with the masses and stays true to the roots of the game-watching experience.
My take, Joe, is that classic ballpark food will always take the top spot. Hot dogs, peanuts, pretzels, they've got history and heart. These staples score big on taste and nostalgia without breaking the bank or causing a distraction. Sure, gourmet options bring a buzz, but are they memorable because of their flavor explosions or just because they're a novelty? Compared to hot dogs, which have been there as long as the seventh inning stretch, these new trendy bites might win today, but they could strike out tomorrow. With classics, every bite's a home run.
You're onto something, Simon. Those classics endure for a reason. They're the reliable heavy hitters that bring us back to our roots. They're part of baseball's DNA. But this gourmet wave, it's a conversation starter, even if it's fleeting. Who knows what'll be on the menu next season? Let's keep an eye on those flavor face-offs. It'd be fun to rank these iconic stadium foods by taste and experience someday, wouldn't it?
Talking about menu next season, Joe, makes me think about those off-the-wall dishes that pop up. You seen the crazy concoctions they dream up? Remember that bacon-wrapped cotton candy concoction? I mean, come on. It's like they spun Willy Wonka into a chef and let him loose in the ballpark kitchens. What's your take on these culinary surprises?
Yeah, those attempts can get pretty outrageous. Some are definitely more miss than hit. Did you hear about the pizza coated with rainbow-colored cheese? It's like they were gunning for Instagram fame. But here's the thing. While these wacky items grab attention, they often fizzle out because the flavor's just not there. These quirks offer a laugh, sure, but most time people revert to their tried-and-true favorites. It's that balance, innovation versus tradition. I'll never forget seeing someone reluctantly bite into a glitter burger. Their expression was pure comedy gold.
Glitter burger? What's next? Sparkly sauce on a sundae. I say keep your glitter to arts and crafts. People go to games for the love of sport, not to eat something that might double as a disco ball. Sure, it's a giggle to see these bizarre menu items, but let's be honest, no one's ditching grandma's classic ballpark chili for a burger that might blind you under the stadium lights. Remember, food is supposed to be appetizing, not an arts project gone rogue.
Simon, for sure, man. When they start slinging glitter burgers around, it's like a bad trip. I'm waiting for the clowns to jump out. You eat that thing and you're sparkling for a week, leaving a trail like you're some kind of baseball Tinkerbell. A bite here or there for the experience, all right? But give me a hot dog or nachos any day. Food should be food, not a centerpiece at a rave. Let's grab a beer, watch the game, and maybe laugh at the dude trying not to turn into a human disco ball with his snack.
You seen these folks munching on glitter burgers? I swear, one bite and they turn into a human panada. Only thing missing is a bunch of kids hitting them with sticks, just to see if more sparkles fall out. Forget baseball cards. Collect those glitter crumbs, and you'll have a full team by seventh inning, man.
Right? It's wild. Say, Simon, what's the most outlandish thing you've actually dared to try at a game? Any wild culinary daredevil experiences you've got stashed away?
Oh, I got one. This one time, Joe, I caved and tried the everything dog. We're talking a hot dog buried under every topping you could fathom. Pickles, jalapenos, chocolate syrup, you name it. It was like playing ingredient roulette. Each bite was a gamble. Will it be sweet relief or tongue-scorching terror? Spoiler, it's mostly terror. Let's just say I won't be pressing my luck again. That thing should have come with a waiver and a free antacid.
Man, that reminds me of the time I went to a game with my brother. He's one of those try-anything-once types. So he spots this challenge on the menu. It's like every protein you can imagine stacked into one burger. Beef, chicken, pork, even an option to slap some fish in there. I'm not kidding. The thing was taller than a can of soda. Watching him trying to take a bite without dislocating his jaw was a spectacle. Halfway through, he looks at me, sauce smeared all over his face, and says, "I think I've made a huge mistake." We still crack up about it. Every time we head to a game now, he goes for the peanuts. Classic case of eyes way bigger than the stomach.
Your bro's burger sounds like Frankenstein's monster hit the weight room. I can picture it now, trying to choke down Moby Dick and friends on a bun. It's got more layers than my winter clothing in a blizzard. Note to self, when you need a stepladder to tackle a burger, maybe just get some fries instead. Fewer crane operations required.
Absolutely, Simon. When a burger needs an instruction manual to eat, that's my hard pass. I'll take those fries any day, especially if I can still watch the game without cutlery or a battle plan.
So Joe, speaking of Frankenstein foods, what's your threshold? Is there anything out there wild enough that even Mr. I'll take the peanuts would give it a go, or are you keeping it strictly no assembly required from now on?
Look, Simon, my rule is keep it simple. But for the sake of adventure, I'd probably toe the line with something like a sriracha honey mustard pretzel twist. Quirky, but not off the rails crazy. If I need a fork, knife, and possibly a bib, count me out. The food's got to complement the game, not complicate it. Besides, if you spend more time Instagramming your meal than watching the pitch, that's too far gone for me.
Sriracha honey mustard pretzel twist. Bro, that's a tongue twister just saying it. Imagine trying to order that after a couple of beers. You might as well give the vendor a riddle. Food's so fancy nowadays, I expect it to do my taxes after I eat it.
Right? Next thing you know, they'll be selling sushi with a side of Sudoku. But the real secret here is balance. Make it tasty, but keep it manageable. It should add to the fun, not become this whole sideshow. I bet half these stadium chefs are just tossing darts at a flavor board to see what sticks. Though I'll admit, Simon, there's something endearing about food so wild it becomes memorable, even if you'd never order it twice.
You ever think maybe these chefs get bored and just start playing snack Jenga? They're back there like, let's throw a donut in the mix, maybe add some olives on top. Boom, it's not breakfast, it's not lunch, it's confusing. Your taste buds don't know whether to thank you or file for divorce.
Actually, Simon, while these zany combos make our heads spin, chefs are onto something. They're tapping into the experience economy. People crave unique experiences they can share and talk about. And weirdly enough, this grabs a ton of attention. In a world dominated by social media, the stranger it is, the more viral it goes. These crazy creations might confuse the palate, but they're powerful marketing tools that get people in the seats just for the novelty. It's not traditional, sure, but you've got to admit it's clever business.
Hold up, Joe. Let's hit the brakes. Chef magicians whipping up Instabait might be clever for marketing, but think about what we're chewing down. This stuff's usually a calorie bomb, and nutrition's on the back burner. A single sitting could set you back days on a good diet routine. They're playing with your health for likes. Sure, getting people talking is great, but at what cost? What about promoting better eating habits or offering options that don't need a warning label?
Hey, wait up a sec, Simon. You're not wrong about the health aspect. We could definitely use more balance at these concession stands. However, it's also on us as consumers to make good choices. Nobody's getting drafted to Team Glitter Burger against their will, right? All right, folks, that's a wrap for today. Huge thanks to all you wonderful listeners for tuning into Infinite Podcast. Don't forget, tune back in tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern for more banter with me and Simon. You won't want to miss it. Stay sharp and keep those snacks sane. Catch you next time.